Welcome back, Black Pack. It's come to my attention that while you guys have seen me play my Unyielding Rage Wolf deck many times, you've never seen a deck profile. So many of you watching are probably in the camp of, why did he make this move over that move? And I wanted to give a small explanation per card as to why I make the moves I do, in case anyone wants to play this themselves, or even play Wolves in general, anything like this, or just want to get a bit of insight into my mind and why it ticks the way that it does. Disclaimer, this is not a completely optimal deck concerning what the strongest version of the deck would look like in the meta or anything of the sort, or the most competitive version. This is my version of Wolves. This is the leader of the Wolf pack, you feel me? It's casual, if anything. All right, now let's rip right on into this. First thing I want you to know before we even get started is that, first off, this should be either Jace or Sarkhan. We're going to go with Sarkhan here.
Bolas was a poor master.
My card sleeves are probably also going to be Sarkhan. That was weird. Unyielding Rage. This should also be an Explorer. All right, then. Now, what I want you to know is my lineup. Everything works off of numbers. And one day I'll make a video in the future concerning numbers. And concerning how I do my numbers and how I draw the cards that I do when I do. Why they come up exactly when they do. We'll have a whole video for that in the future. Okay. So, red and green. Those are the two primary colors of this deck. As you can see, the deck slightly favors green over red just a bit. In this little chart here, you can see I have 25 greens and 22 reds. Greens are accounting for 66% of the deck. But as you can see, it's obviously not too far off from one another. So thus, I'm able to play forest and mountain at equal numbers, and they'll come up essentially perfectly. I play 22 lands in here. Now, my deck can actually, the ceiling of my deck is 6-tap. I know it's like called CMC and 6 drop, but I say tap, so get used to that. So the ceiling of my deck is 6-tap. My deck can go up to 6 for its cost. But I only have 2 people who lie within that bracket, or it might even just be 1 that lies within that bracket. So it barely counts. It's not like I'm just dropping 3 6-taps over in the late game or anything like that. While I can reach up to that, those are in case the game isn't over by then cards. My deck naturally goes up to around 4 to maybe 5. The game is usually over by then. I'm looking to end the game within 5 turns. So that's how that goes. This is a very aggro deck, as you will see. As you can see from the spread of the creatures versus non-creatures here, I have 20 creatures and I have 18 non-creatures. Now, 20 creatures means that over the course of the game, I'm going to keep drawing creatures. Those will be supplemented by a removal spell here or there, or a spell that, or an enchantment that'll power up my creatures attack-wise. So just know that. And lastly, for this chart, before we actually get into the deck, as you can see, my numbers spike in the 2 to 3 taps, with me having 12 2-taps and 16 3-taps. So early to mid-game, around mid-game, my deck is extreme. It's just throwing out all of these 3-taps and 2-taps. And since Wolves have maxed out power and toughness, they're not going 2-1 or 3-2. They're going 3-3, 2-2, 4-4. You know what I mean? So they can block just as well as they can attack. This means I can afford to skip turns, and you'll see why in a minute. All right, it's time to actually get to the deck now. So when it comes to 1-taps, I have 4 creatures, right? I've got my 4 Snarling Wolf. This is a 1/1 wolf for 1 green. It has the ability that I can tap 1 colorless and 1 green, and Snarling Wolf will get +2/+2 until the end of the turn. I can only activate that once each turn, but this is magic, so I can activate everything at instant speed. So I can do that to block. I can block as a 3/3 out of nowhere, or I can attack, and if my opponent allows the attack through, then I can initiate this effect and get 3 off instead of just 1. And I will, of course, do this depending on what's going on. If I know I'm going up against someone who's like blue, and thus they have the ability to counter my cards, if they want to say hit like 2 to 3, usually around 2 to 3 mana, they can start countering. At 2 mana, they can counter specific things, a creature spell, a non-creature spell. At 3 mana, they can counter anything. So early game, I put this out, I'll attack. If I'm going first, I'll attack with it. And I'll just poke them for 1. Now, like I said, against blue, I will actually drop another creature onto the field, such as my Hungry Ridge Wolf, which usually comes up pretty early as well. I'll drop that out while they're all tapped out. I got to get this stuff out early. But against other colors, I can actually afford to wait. Against black, I do have to be a bit careful. But against black and blue, I need to rush them as fast as possible before they have enough mana to start removing things or preventing me from moving. Against other red decks, it's just a war. Against white decks, I still have to apply pressure because they gain life points. So I need to apply pressure. White is hard to fight because they have flyers. But if I attack hard enough, they'll have to just ram those flyers into me or they die. So, and against green, green is hard to fight because they have bigger numbers than I do. Sometimes faster than I do. But sometimes not. Sometimes they'll put out a couple mana dorks and prepare themselves, right? And in that time I'm rushing them, so it's just a rush down really. So 4 Snarling Wolf almost guarantees that the wolf comes up in the early game. And there are 2 Raise the Effigy. This is a 1-tap instant red that destroys a target artifact and a target or I can choose one, either destroy a target artifact or a target attacking creature gets +2/+2 until the end of the turn. I never use that secondary ability because I have Howling Moon, which already gives +2/+2, as you'll see later. But it is the same ability as Howling Moon for just 1 mana. So in cases where, let's say I need that 1-tap for something else, I don't know what it could be for, maybe like I have a Snarling Wolf in hand, right? And I need to put it out, like a secondary Snarling Wolf in hand, I need to put it out, then I'll put it out in the second main phase. The way that I'll go about that is by using my Kaseg Naturalist. This says whenever it's a 1 red, 1 green, and whenever it attacks, I get to float a red or a green. So this could also help me put out my second Snarling Wolf or whatever it may be. It helps fix the numbers. If I'm on 2 mana and I haven't tapped anything down, I just went into my battle phase. In the second main phase, I can put out TOVOLAR, or maybe out, that's only if I have 2 mana, mind you. But if I do have all 3 mana, I'll just throw TOVOLAR out and just rush my opponent down and draw cards for it. Okay. Within my 2 taps, I do have Cathartic Pyre. This allows me to deal 3 damage to a target creature or planeswalker. Now, it being able to deal 3 damage to a planeswalker is what matters. Wolves already have like 2 to 3 ways to deal damage to another creature. Whether it be by their own ability or whether it be because, they have their own removal spells. I can handle creatures. I'm not worried about that at all. But planeswalkers are a problem. As you know, when a planeswalker hits the field, you have to deal with them. They are kill on sight, right? And this allows me to deal with them. If they use their secondary, planeswalker uses its secondary ability and minuses itself by 2 or so, I can use this to just get them off the field. Really powerful card at instant speed. 2 copies. Hungry Ridge Wolf, which I was explaining earlier, is a 2/2 for 2. As long as I control another wolf or werewolf, Hungry Ridge Wolf gets +1/+0 and gets trample. This allows me to start pressuring my opponent very, very early. Most people just focus on the werewolves specifically. And while my deck does indeed focus on the werewolves, the wolves supplementing, the regular wolves supplementing the werewolves can be very, very good. Because the wolves don't care if it's daytime or it's nighttime. I can just attack with them and get their effects off. And this obviously goes hand in hand with my Snarling Wolf, as it's almost guaranteed to come up early. And the way I did that is by having 4 Snarling Wolf and 2 Raise the Effigy. That is 6 1-taps. We play by 60 cards. That means every 10 cards or so, I'm almost guaranteed to draw into the Snarling Wolf. And mind you, it does not mean by the 6th card or the 10th card more so. It means somewhere before the 10th card, the Snarling Wolf should show up. And we start with 7 cards in hand. So Snarling Wolf almost always shows up in my opening hand. That's how that number works. I'll have a whole number video, like I said, later. It's whatever. I also play 2 copies of Outland Liberator. This allows me to get rid of target artifact or enchantment by tapping one and sacking it. Now, it has daybound. This is the start of the daybound nightbound cycle. For those who are uninformed, daybound happens when a card enters the field that is a werewolf that will come and it will become daytime and a cycle with them again. If neither player plays a card from their hand during said player's turn, it will then, in the change between turns, it will become nighttime. When it's night, when I cast my wolves during night, they automatically evolve. Also, all werewolves on the field evolve into their full werewolf state during nighttime. So it will change that way. Now, my Outland Liberator gets rid of artifacts and enchantments, and that is very important. Ever since the Brothers War pack and, All Will Be One, Phyrexia, and all of these all this artifact support and enchantment support, but mainly artifacts, they're running rampant. You got a lot of Phyrexians who are part artifact, or they generate artifacts or make tokens that are artifacts. You need to be able to handle that stuff in today's game. It is very important. It's imperative. So I have this. And yes, it's a bit of a sacrifice, as it literally sacrifices itself to get rid of an artifact, but that is worth it to get rid of something that would have stayed there forever. I'm willing to sacrifice one. A 1-for-1 is totally fine. Now, if I can manage to get it to nighttime and he transforms, then it'll transform into the Frenzied Trap Breaker. This still has the ability of tapping one, sacking itself to pop an artifact, but what's the point of doing that when it has another ability now, which is whenever it attacks, I can destroy a target artifact or enchantment defending player controls. Now, that's very powerful. Every attack, I just pop artifacts on attack. And with all the pressure that I'm putting forth, the opponent's going to have to try to, double block to kill him or put one of the strongest cards in. Because remember, if you have something that has 3 power, then that can kill a 1-tap, a 2-tap, a 3-tap, or even a 4-tap that has 4/3. That allows you, it allows you a lot of space to be able to force your opponent to lose something important or a couple somethings. It's very powerful. Now, how do people handle this pressure? Well, they start spamming cards on the field, because when it's nighttime, if 2 or more cards are played by one player in one turn, in the changing of turns, it will become daytime again, and all werewolves will transform back into their human state. So that's how the day and night cycle is controlled. And my opponent will just start spamming stuff on the field to make sure that I stay in my human state. So that's the weakness of werewolves. How do I cover that? Well, I use Howling Moon. Howling Moon is a 2 and a green enchantment that says at the beginning of combat on my turn, a target wolf or werewolf I control gets +2/+2 until the end of the turn, making them a problem, especially if they have trample or something of the sort. Now they really are doing a lot of damage. And the fact that they get, +2 defense, +2 toughness is very powerful in its own right, as my opponent can't just block it and call it a day. It'll cost a bit trying to kill this. If Tovolar is swinging with 5/5, you're not just easily getting rid of him unless you have a removal spell, or unless you're willing to sacrifice 2 or more cards, most likely at least, or your best card's very, very potent. Whenever an opponent casts their second spell each turn, I create a 2/2 green wolf creature token. This is how I counter the countering of my wolves. You counter my wolves by placing out a bunch of stuff from your hand. This card says if you start doing that, I get tokens. So now I start spreading and getting more, going wide. So now you actually have to think about it. Is it worth spamming these cards out and giving him more to attack with? Even if they're only 2/2, once there are 3 or 4 of them, it's a problem. 1 person, 2 people versus 5 or so wolves ain't gonna work out for that person. So, and not to mention, if I want, I can use Howling Moon to power up the said tokens that it creates, making them 4/4. So they're really hard to stop. That card is amazing. I played at 3 copies. You should always play that at least 3 copies. Really good. You might even want to go 4, but it is a 3-tap. So, unless you have a way to ramp quickly, I don't know if you want to wait 3 turns to, in case you have multiple copies in your hand. I'm not sure if you want to wait 3 turns to then only be able to drop 1. The next turn have to pay that same amount to drop 1, leaving you with maybe 1 mana left. It can get kind of weird. Anyway, I already told you about my Kiseg Naturalist, which floats mana on attack. When it transforms into its wolf state, it can still float mana on attack, but also while it's out, other wolves and werewolves I control get +1/+1. And this is a theme you're going to notice with the wolves from Crimson Vow and Midnight Hunt. These wolves, unlike the old wolves of the past with Shadow over Innistrad and so on and so forth, which would have their power and toughness jump from where it is up by 2 stages. So there'll be a 2/2, and when they transform, they'll transform into a 4/4, to make kind of make up for the fact that you didn't play anything during your turn, to be able to have them transform. So now they're strong enough to matter on the turn after this one or whatever. That was a bit of a flawed way of going about it. We'll get into that in another video. But these wolves transform by 1/1. So a 2/2 turns into a 3/3. But now they gain an extra effect. They keep their effect. That's the thing that makes it powerful. That they keep their effect they had when they were a human. And now they gain an extra effect that usually helps the pack. So you'll see why. They have a very pack-like mentality. Such as that the Ovenwald actually being able to power up all wolves other than himself. It's a very pack-like mentality. All right. I also play a couple copies of Unnatural Moonrise. This card is amazing. It forces it to become night, meaning all wolves transform immediately. I don't have to skip my turn or anything like that. Very strong. Until the end of the turn, target creature, doesn't even have to be a wolf, but target creature gets +1/+0 and gains trample. And gains whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. That is Tovolar's effect, by the way. I like that I can just turn a wolf into Tovolar. Very strong. Now, being able to trample and have on-hit draw is just immaculate. This means my opponent is going to have to sacrifice at least 2 of their cards, most likely at least, if they want to stop the trample and stop me from drawing an extra card. More times than not, my opponent would just let the hit through, which is terrible for them because I'm hitting them with a big number and I'm drawing a card. It's amazing. It also has flashback for 2, a red and a green. So later on in the game, around mid to late game, I can make it nighttime again once I have enough mana. Now, even though I'm in green, I actually don't play any ramp, but that's because I want to pressure my opponent. I don't really want to skip turns doing any of that. I just want the opponent just constantly under pressure. You feel me? All right, then. Within my 3 taps, I'm also playing Moon Rager Slash, which I have at 2 copies. This card naturally costs 3, and it can deal 3 damage to any target. Now, you would think to yourself, okay, doesn't Cathartic Pyre do, like, almost exactly that for just 2 mana? Yes, but this can do that to anything. That can be to a battle, that can be to a Planeswalker, that could be to a creature, that could be to someone's face. Very powerful. Now, but that's not the real boon of this card. The real boon comes in its secondary ability of... this spell costs 2 less mana to cast if it's nighttime. So during my opponent's turns, that's usually when night hits, during the opponent's turn, I can use this for 1 red mana. Now, there aren't very many times I need to use mana on the opponent's turn, so it only matters but so much, but it could matter. Werewolves on their werewolf state side, on the transform side, they tend to use mana to use their effects. It depends. It really depends. But very, very powerful card. Very wide-ranging, and I like that. I like that a lot. I play 3 Reckless Stormseeker, a 2/3 human werewolf for 2 and a red. At the beginning of combat on my turn, a target creature can be any creature. Doesn't even have to be a wolf. It's going to be a wolf because I only play those. But in case I did decide to tech something else in, it still works for that. Gets +1/+0 and gains haste. This means that now anything that, once this has been established and does not die, anything I put forth once per turn is going to gain the ability to attack immediately. The amount of pressure this puts forth, especially if the person that comes out and gets that is Tovolar, is unmatched. It's ridiculous. Tovolar swinging for 4 with on-hit draw is amazing. Is absolutely amazing. He has 3 toughness, so you're not just blocking him with a chump blocker and calling it a day. I mean, you could, because unless he has trample, that'll stop him technically, but you're losing something when he swings. You know that much. You're either losing just about a quarter of your life or losing field presence, and I like that. I like that a lot. When he transforms, he still has that ability, but instead he now gives +2/+0 and trample and haste to something, which is very strong. Now Tovolar or whoever is getting it becomes an actual problem. That gets out of hand very quickly, as you can imagine. While we're in the 3 taps, I should obviously mention my favorite card in the deck, the leader of the deck, Tovolar, the Dire Overlord. And as you'll see when I start posting Vanguard, Vanguard is another card game, by the way. When I begin posting Vanguard material and Vanguard videos, you'll see I am a big fan of Overlord cards. Now, 3/3 legendary creature human werewolf, 1 colorless, a green, and a red. Whenever a wolf, could be himself, could be any wolf on my field, or a werewolf I control, Deals combat damage to a player, I draw a card. So it has the same ability as Unnatural Moonrise. It's a walking Unnatural Moonrise. And in that stack. So if I hit you with 2 to 3 cards that turn, I'm drawing 2 to 3 cards. That can get out of hand. I even have a little short where I drew about like 6 cards off of this because I was stacking his effect with other. It was out of hand. It was really insane. Now, at the beginning of my upkeep, if I control 3 or more wolves and or werewolves, it becomes night. Then transform any number of human werewolves I control. This is very powerful because as the day and night cycle naturally is, the opponent has control over it, really. If they play a bunch of cards out their hand, you're not transforming. So that's how they counter it. And sure, I have a way to, get back at them with my Howling Moon, but that doesn't turn it into night. That just makes them pay for, just keeping me off of my deck's theme. But TOVOLAR allows me to take that back. An overlord. He controls it. So if I have 3 or more, including himself, which means I only need to put 2 other people out beside him, he will force it to become nighttime. So it doesn't matter. That means I can play whatever I want. While TOVOLAR is out, you can play your deck naturally as a regular duelist. As a regular Magic player, you can play your deck naturally. Very strong, very powerful. I cannot stress how good that is. I play it at 3 copies. You should probably play a playset at 4 copies, but 3 is enough for me. It pops up pretty frequently, early game, strangely enough, but it's really good. Even without draw power, it pops up pretty good. I have 2 copies of Dire Strain Rampage. This is a 3-tap, multicolor 3-tap sorcery that destroys a target artifact, enchantment, important because to hell with Phyrexians. Destroys a target artifact, enchantment, or land. If a land was destroyed this way, its controller may search its library for up to 2 basic land cards and put them on the battlefield tapped. I can use this to get rid of special lands that my opponent has that has some type of, ability, like Castle Embereth or something like that. Embereth, or Castle Lockwind, any of the castles, essentially. I could get rid of those, and sure, they'll get 2 more mana out of it, but they now don't have a special ability. I'd rather them have the ability to drop more stuff out their hand and be able to use the land for those busted effects of drawing cards or powering up the whole front row. It's absolutely insane. So this gets rid of a land, but more importantly, almost, it gets rid of another artifact or enchantment. I cannot stress enough how important it is to deal with that stuff in the Phyrexian era. Okay, now the main way I use it, and this might be a bit of a hot take, but the main way I use it is I pop my own land to get myself a couple lands. Because there are times, it's very rare, but about 15% of the time in this deck, you will get locked, right? You'll whiff concerning how much land you have, and now you're just stuck for like 2 turns. And this deck cannot afford to miss more than 1 turn for a land drop, or you're going to fall behind very quickly. And this deck doesn't exactly play enough removal to keep up with the opponent if they start spamming the field. And there's no board wipe in here. Maybe I should think about one, but there's no board wipe in here to be able to reset the field. In your version, you should probably play a board wipe. It could be very important. It could be the difference between living and dying. It could be the difference between winning and your face exploding. All right. So, like I said, this can destroy an artifact, enchantment, or land, and then put mana onto the field. So, if it pops an artifact or enchantment, the owner of that card gets to go in their deck and put a basic land on the field. If it pops a land, owner goes and gets 2 basic land, throws them out. It also has flashback, so it can be played later on in the game, late game. For 5 mana, it can be played again. Really good. This also helps me defend against mill decks, because they'll mill me out, and this will end up in the graveyard and now be able to be activated from the grave. And the same thing with Unnatural Moonrise, which also has flashback. So really powerful. This is a card I decided to put in. As you can see, its theming isn't exactly like everything else in my deck, but I feel it's really good. It's a 3-tap instant green. It says choose one or both. I can return a target creature from my grave to my hand, or I can return a target enchantment card from my grave to my hand. That could get out of hand, obviously. If someone pops my Howling Moon, I could just grab it back, and naturally I could get my TOVOLAR back with that. It's really powerful in this deck. That's just really good. I'm also playing Howl of the Hunt, a 2 and a green enchantment aura that naturally has enchanted creature gets +2/+2 and has vigilance, allowing my wolves to attack without tapping themselves, meaning I don't have to use my cards from my hand as much to keep my opponent off me. My wolf, with its high attack and power and toughness, can just block you. This card is really good. I played at least 2 copies. And it also has, when it enters the battlefield, if it enchanted a wolf or a werewolf, untap that creature. So in case I did it during the attack, I'll attack with, a good example. I'll attack with my Outland Liberator, which is naturally 2/2. My opponent goes to block it with a 3/3, feeling like it's a like that. They feel like he was testing to see if I'd block or not. He probably just wants to get a free attack and he go for the block. And I'm like, you dumbass. And I'll activate this, untap my wolf, and make him a 4/4, overtaking their card. So, and the reason I can do that is because it has flash. So it can flash out of nowhere. My wolf can pump itself up. They'll never see it coming. Really good. I play 2 of those. I'm also playing Hound Tamer at 1 copy. It has trample, and when it transforms, it gives all wolves and werewolves trample. It also can pay 3 and a green on its transform side to put a +1/+1 counter on a target creature. I never use that. I have enough ways to power up it. That doesn't matter. But it can do that on its human side too, but I never really care about that. I just like that it can trample. Really good card in its own right. It's all right. I don't know if I would call it really, really good, but it's all right. Giving them the ability to trample on its transform side, whole different story. I don't know if I would call that all right. I would call that magnificent. Very powerful. Yes, that's radiant. Then comes the best utility in the deck. This is Howlpack Piper, a 2/2 human werewolf for 4 in green. This card cannot be countered. And I wish I was recording, but yesterday I faced off against a blue player. I went to cast this and they went to counter it, and it was the smoothest thing. That was the last of their mana. They held those 2 mana, held that mana up. That's another thing about getting over on blue. They'll hold their mana up looking to counter you. And sometimes that'll cause them not to make a move on their turn, so you'll transform automatically. It is amazing. But anyway, he went to counter this, and I wish I could have seen his face when he paid all his mana. It all got tapped down, and his card just went to the graveyard. And I can imagine the little face that you see people make with the 2 eyeballs and a little lipstick in the middle. Like, do you think I'm a joke? Yes, I do. Now, this card can tap 1 colorless and 1 green and tap itself to put a creature, any creature, from my hand directly onto the battlefield. If that creature was a wolf or a werewolf, he untaps himself, activate only as a sorcery. But it does not say only once per turn, meaning if I have 6 mana and like 3 of them at least are green, I can do this 3 times and just throw TOVOLAR out. You know what I'm saying? Throw TOVOLAR out. Throw out my Hound Tamer. Throw out whatever it is I need. Say Naturalist. Just throwing cards onto the field. Absolutely ridiculous. And the reason that's so ridiculous is because it allows me to technically, I'm putting up quotations here, technically cast cards from my hand without actually casting them, so they can't be countered. And more importantly, that means I'm not playing anything from my hand, so I get to transform while still getting my creatures out. I need a second copy of this. I just don't have a rare wild card at the very moment to create one. But when you play, you should be playing like 2 to 3 of these. This card is absolutely amazing. I'm going to run it at 2. That's enough for me because it's a 4 tap. And remember, I want early game pressure. So by the time I get to this guy, usually the opponent's on their last legs. They're like at 8. So it's whatever. And I also play a copy of my Village Watch. This is a 4 and a red human werewolf for 3 with haste and Daybound. Now, this thing has haste, so it comes out and gets to swing it immediately. But more importantly, when it transforms into Village Reavers, wolves and werewolves I control have haste. All my wolves come out ready to swing. That's a problem, obviously. I should probably mention Howlpack Piper being amazing for its other side as well. Wildsong Howler has 4/4, and whenever this creature enters the battlefield, meaning when he transforms into the Wildsong Howler, or if I cast him during night and he enters the battlefield, because it activates on entering or if he transforms. Look at the top 6 cards of my library. I can reveal a creature from among them, put it in my hand, put the others on the bottom of the library in a random order. So this is my search. This is what I meant by his utility. I only have the 1 copy. I definitely should be running at least 2. When I do get my rare wild card, I will alert you guys and let you know that I've put it in. This card is absolutely amazing. It's totally a chick, but it's absolutely amazing. She's really powerful. She's technically second in command in my mind, but there is an actual second in command in TOVOLAR's deck, and we're almost there. I play 1 copy of Wolfkin Outcast. I found this guy yesterday, and he's been amazing ever since I put him in. A 5/4 human werewolf for 6. This spell costs 2 less to cast if I control a wolf or a werewolf, allowing him to actually come out for 4, and that's really good early game because he's a 5. Really powerful. When he transforms into the Wedding Crasher, a 6/5 that has whenever he himself or another wolf or werewolf I control dies, I draw a card. So now as you block my wolves trying to keep me off of you, I'm just drawing more cards, making you waste all your stuff. This dude is amazing. He's like non-on hit TOVOLAR. He's like defensive TOVOLAR. I love this card. It's really good. I want to craft another copy at some point. And the last creature of the deck is TOVOLAR's Huntmaster, a 6/6 human werewolf for 4 and 2 green. Whenever the Huntmaster enters the battlefield, I create 2/2 green wolf creature tokens. So him coming out equals 2 more tokens. If TOVOLAR is already out, you can see why they call him the Huntmaster. Now TOVOLAR is set up to almost guaranteed, unless you have removal, guaranteed force it to become nighttime, allowing TOVOLAR himself and the Huntmaster and whoever else may be a werewolf on the field to transform. He's a wonderful second in command. With 6/6, you're not just blocking him easily or anything like that. You're not you could chump block him, but you know what I mean? You're not like stopping him and killing him easily. Really powerful. And he could block almost anybody with ease, with the greatest of ease. He transforms into TOVOLAR's Pack Leader, a 7/7 that definitely can stop anything in its way. That has whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks. So I do need to cast it from my hand during nighttime for this effect to go off, or every time it attacks. I create 2 of the wolf tokens. And he has another new ability, which is I can tap 2 colorless and 2 green, and another target wolf or werewolf I control will fight a target creature I don't control. So now there is, and this is what I meant by the wolves sometimes have removal. This is the removal card for the wolves, as I can force a fight between 2. He's powerful, 7/7. If I force him to fight anybody, they're dead. You know what I mean? I can also do little combos such as using him alongside the Wolfkin Outcast, forcing or maybe a token or so to fight someone. Of course, you kill the token, but now you lost 2 of your toughness. Also, the token dying will cause the Wolfkin Outcast to activate and draw me a card. So now I make up for the 4 mana that I paid. This guy is absolutely cracked alongside TOVOLAR. And for the most part, that is my deck. I do have a sideboard I will go over in a minute, but I have 9 mountains, 9 forests. I play 2 copies of Bristling Backwoods. This is one of the newer lands from Thunder Junction that when it hits the battlefield, it deals a damage. You guys remember the on-place, gain life, the life gain lands, right? Well, they made the reverse of those finally. Shock lands, you could call them. I think there's actually a land called Shock Land, ironically. But regardless, these deal a damage to the opponent upon being placed out. I have had a thing where, because I play 2 of these, and I had a thing when I had the 4 life gain lands that they would come up at the worst moments when I needed it to actually be an untapped land, so that was devastating. But these, I don't mind them being tapped because they do a damage, like they really hold their weight. I have 1 copy of, and at some point I'll probably put a second copy, but I don't know about that, of Copperline Gorge. When it enters the battlefield, it comes out tapped unless I have 2 or fewer lands. Now this kind of goes against what the deck wants to do, is I want more lands so I can put out bigger wolves. But early game, if this does pop up, it's just a free land. It's the opposite of the ones that are like if you control 2 or more lands. So I only need the 1 copy of it. And lastly, I'm playing 1 copy of, ironically, that type of land I was just mentioning, Rockfall Vale from Midnight Hunt, that when it enters the battlefield, it comes out tapped unless I control 2 or more other lands. So, and that is the deck for the most part. As you can see, it focuses on early game pressuring the opponent. And mid-game, even more pressure and draw, making up for my resources I've spent early to put stuff out. And then late game, finishing the opponent off with an overwhelming force if we reach late game. I'm trying to kill you by turn 5, 6 at the latest. If it goes past turn 6, then my deck has a tendency to slow down if they've been using removal, but otherwise I'm probably already winning or have won already in Ava, or they've exploded their face, which is the most likely outcome. And lastly, I play 4 sideboard cards because I haven't really gone in and fully made my sideboard. But I'm playing Bird Admirer. This is a 1/4 with Reach and Daybound. Let's see, that means it can actually counter birds, and that's very important. Anything that flies, like I said, is a problem. So I do have something on the side that can stop flies for the second game, for game 2. And I have a Wolf Strike, 2 copies of Wolf Strike, a 2 and a green instant. Target creature I control gets +2/+0 until the end of the turn. If it's nighttime, then it also deals damage equal to its power to a target creature I don't control. Very powerful, very powerful. That was my Wolf deck, my Unyielding Rage deck. I'm hoping that you all enjoyed that. If you're looking for more content on deck creation or even just games, then don't forget to subscribe, like the video, share it around. It really helps me out. I'm a budding YouTuber and I appreciate the help. I appreciate if even one person watches the video or shares it around. I really appreciate that. I thank you for your time. And remember, if you want to join the Black Pack, all you have to do is leave me a howl.